tarot guy, and I have world famous author, raconteur, tarot diva, Sasha Graham, who is graciously agreed to be on tonight as our featured guest presenter speaker. And we're going to ask Sasha a few questions. She's going to tell us the story about her experiences. She's been the author of many, many excellent books on tarot and other things. The list of books, gosh, there's the 360, many excellent books on
what happened?
Tarot. That's an echo, sorry. 365 days.
365 tarot spells.
There you go. 365 tarot spells and just
365 tarot spreads.
Tarot spreads, and then we've got the tarot fundamentals, right?
Yeah, for Lo Scarabeo. Tarot Fundamentals, Tarot Compendium, and Tarot Experience.
And then you also the tarot spells, right? 365 tarot spells. Like I said, the list goes on and on. It's amazing. You're so prolific.
Thank you.
And you've got lots of good things going on in the Skunk Works. But before we get to today, I'd like to sort of go back memory lane to when it all started. Were there any early experiences when you were younger, perhaps as a little girl? Did you have any early signs that you had a gift, or were your parents gifted in any way? Or please let's start at the beginning.
Oh, I love it. Okay, great question. And thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you everybody for tuning in. So I come from a very creative family, a long line of artists and writers. So I feel like psychic intuitiveness, the arts, it all kind of goes really hand in hand. It's all sort of the same thing by different names. So the big kind of thing that cued me off that I was probably going to be connected to the cards is that I'm a Halloween baby.
Ah, that is trick or treat. Amazing.
Yeah. So like for my whole life, I just always kind of felt connected to Halloween, connected to the supernatural. I felt like it was like my automatic, my realm. I grew up on mountains. I grew up in the woods, so it's I just always felt like reading tarot cards was something that I should know how to do. It was like a talent that I was born with. And so when I was about 12 years old, I got my first deck.
Really?
Yes. And I got the deck because we were having a carnival at school. And I thought, I'll set up a gypsy fortune telling tent. It'll be amazing, right? So I got the deck and I came home and I tore it open. And I was like, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like, I don't know how to read these cards. Like I thought it was my birthright or something. And I swear to God that moment of being so excited to read the cards and then not being able to, or not.
Hey, what's doing a live thing right now?
Not knowing what
Sasha
to do.
Graham.
That's okay. I muted him. Go ahead, dear.
Oh, okay. So that moment, I was really, it really led to my first book, Tarot Diva, because I never wanted anyone else I knew to get excited about reading the cards and then feel like they couldn't play with them and explore them right off the bat, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what was that first deck?
It was the Rider-Waite deck for sure. It was the Rider-Waite. And the funny second part to that is that the same day or maybe the next day, my stepsister's friend was over and she was a born again Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw my tarot cards, ripped them out of my hand and burned them in a garbage can. We were living on a farm at the time, so we had like, one of those like outdoor like garbage things. And she was like, "Oh, they're the work of the devil."
Oh my gosh.
It made me want to learn them more.
Of course. I mean, the best way to get somebody to do something is tell them they can't do it, right?
Yeah, tell them that it's dangerous or bad or something. But yeah, so that was the beginning. That was the beginning. I hear people shuffling. I love that.
Okay. I'm just going to mute a few more people. If you're shuffling or eating potato chips or doing something, guys, please mute.
That was a shuffle. That wasn't a chip.
Okay. Okay, so that was about 12, and then I guess well, you didn't write the book at 12, but you started studying it, learning it.
No, I started learning them, and it was the kind of thing. It wasn't the forefront. It wasn't like the big passion of my life, but it was definitely something that I slowly started to learn. And then when I was working with a bunch of girls, and I got really serious about learning the cards, and it was wonderful because I could read everybody's cards at night after our shift. For anybody out there who's starting out, people love having their cards read, so you're never at a loss, even if you're starting out just with a little white book. um yeah, so I had this life in New York, and after I had my daughter, um when she went off to kindergarten, my husband said, Sash, it's time for your next chapter. What's it going to be? And ironically, I was asking the tarot every day, like, what is next? What am I supposed to do? And then it hit me one day, tarot. It's the perfect profession, as so many women, or so many independent contract people understand now. Like, it's a great business that you can run out of your home. You can set your own hours. And being in New York City, it was just like there were so many events that I could read at.
But you also had other strings to the fiddle. I mean, you were also an actor as well, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So I was an actor in the 90s. Like, I moved to New York to become an actress when I was
Okay.
17.
Hmm.
And then for most of the 90s, I was an actor. I did off-Broadway theater. I became like a B movie star, which is funny in retrospect because that connects as well, like the whole
Well, I
supernatural.
remember you were telling us. Remember, I think you were telling Rachel. Well, Rachel obviously knows your story, but you were kind of reciting your. You remember at our little psychic meetup,
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
telling us that you were a vampire, or what were you?
yeah, yeah. One of the best movies I did was Addicted to Murder. Well, I did Addicted to Murder 1, 2, and 3.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that was and
Great.
and Polymorph and The Vicious Suite and Psycho Sisters 2, Beyond the Brink of Madness, Guilty Pleasures, like all these crazy. Back in the 90s, there was a straight to video market for movies that just never went to the movies. They just went straight to video. And there was this huge niche around them. So I got to play all of these fun parts. And people would always associate a B movie star with like a girl getting murdered, but it was quite the opposite. I was always like the female kind of in control. I was the vampire or the werewolf or the alien, or one time I played a mafia chick. So I was the one doing a lot of killing before I.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, that's great. Oh, and
It was
you mentioned that you're going back into indies as well soon, or what?
Well, I
Is
can't
that a secret? We're not allowed to mention that.
I can't give out
Uh,
all the details, but yeah, I
so,
was I
guys,
was
you have it here first.
I'm going back to make another movie this year. It looks like
Ah,
I'm
cool.
I'm
Great.
really really excited.
Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So so actually learning how to read the card, learning the cards, practicing, etc.
Right.
What was the basis of your first book? Really, is
Mhm.
that kind of how that happened?
Well, the first book, Tarot Diva,
Right.
was really about. So many of the books at that point were just, these are the cards, this is what they mean. You had to memorize all the definitions, which of course you do have to memorize the definitions. Ultimately, if you want to become a really seasoned reader, there's no way around that. But I was interested in looking at ways that you could incorporate tarot into every aspect of your life, right? So what sort of archetype are you when you go into your closet to get dressed in the morning? What kind of archetype are you? What kind of major arcana are you when you're in the kitchen making dinner? Are you a show off in the kitchen like the magician, serving lots of fancy dinner parties? Or are you more of like the chariot, always ordering takeout and don't really have, time to fuss around in the kitchen? So Tarot Diva was about making tarot really accessible in some unexpected ways. And then it attacked the court cards by looking at them all kind of through the lens of high school. So the pages were your best friends in high school, and the nights were the boys that you went out with. and then the queens and the kings were like the moms and the dads. So it just tried to give a fun, fresh way to enter the deck.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, it's one of my favorite books anyway. So there. But so now, is there any? Do you have any insight for the newbie, as it were, in terms of how to start with the cards? Say you get your first brand new spanking Rider Waite deck. There it is, still wrapped in plastic, right?
Yes, yes. My
What would be your advice for the newbie? What should she or he do? And besides buy your books? But
right, right,
go ahead.
right. Well, no, my the first thing I always tell people, and it makes me so happy because I've had so many people come back and say, Sasha, I'll hear your voice when I'm pulling cards in the morning. And I think it's the most, not only is it like the best thing to do if you're first learning how to read the cards, but it never loses its value because I still do it every single day. And that's just pull one single card a day. Like, and there's so many reasons why you want to do this. But when you first are sitting down with a tarot deck, you think that it's about learning what all the cards mean, right? But it's so much more than that. It's clearing your headspace. It's creating, and again, like 5 minutes every morning is such a powerful habit to get into where you're opening your mind, you're curious, you're forming a really, really good question. And what you find out by doing that every single day without fail, like with your morning coffee or with your morning tea, is that you also start to discover how you work intuitively and or psychically, and that's just as much if not more important than what the cards actually mean, right? So I think simplicity, no matter how experienced you are, it comes back to the simplicity of one card and an open headspace, and then checking back in at the end of the day to see how that card played out, to see if any of your intuitive hits came true. And
Absolutely, yeah.
they will, and it's so much fun. It's so cool. Like it's so amazing. Like a weird like psychic thing happened to me the other night, and it reminded me of those early days with the cards. And because you're actively working it like a muscle, because you're paying attention to it, it gets stronger and it gets richer, and it's just so awesome.
That's awesome. I want to tell you something. That's exactly how my granny taught me. She said,
Oh,
pull a card. She said, put it face down, and at the end of the day, turn the card over.
oh, that's good. I'm totally gonna take that from my
That was
grandma.
like I was like my French granny. I'll tell you, she was from France. She came over as a result of World War II. She was kind of a refugee, as it were. She lived right across the street from the UN, and my parents would dump me on her on Sunday. And
Oh,
I
it
would,
sounds like a travesty.
but
No, don't send me to New York to my cool French grandmother.
but where I'm going was, I would watch my grandmother. These people would come rushing across the street from the UN to have my grandmother read their cards, etc. But she used the Marseille deck and then etc. But because she was French, of course.
Of
But
course.
that's how she taught me. She gave me my own little deck, and then I would play. I mean, I didn't understand what she was doing or what they meant, but I would play with my little cards off in a corner in another part of her apartment.
That reminds me of that scene in Practical Magic when the two little girls are, and when Sally and the other one are up on the stairs listening to the ants perform their spell, and they're sort of like horrified and fascinated and scared by all of it. That's such a cool experience. So did she teach you? She taught you the cards?
Yeah, well, she began when I got a little older. Obviously, when I was, 4 and 5, I was just, you know, she just gave me an old deck that was missing cards. I didn't care. I was just playing and probably well, I had cousins. We did the same. They did the same thing. As well. It
Did
was
you ever
Sunday at
see?
Grand Nana's house. But anyway, back to you. I was going to ask, do you remember when you started giving readings? Were you giving readings for your little school friends or girlfriends or
Yeah. So I was reading for my girlfriends, and then it hit me. I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna actually make a business out of this.
Okay.
But it's the kind of thing where, and at that time, this is like pre-Facebook internet. This was like, I don't know, 13 years ago, I want to say. And
Okay.
so I thought, well, I need to be kind of educated. And I found the tarot school, Walden. Ruth Ann Amberstone's tarot school, happened to be teaching Monday night classes like 5 blocks from my apartment,
Oh,
which
really? Wow.
was a godsend because I thought, okay, here's the people that I can talk about, and I'm not just going from a book. And then there was a Thai restaurant downstairs in my building at the time. So I asked them if I could set up a little table in the window on, I think, Sunday nights it was. And I
Awesome.
said, because they were kind of slow on Sundays, and I thought, oh, I can like get some street traffic in. And that was the first, and I did. I would do maybe 3 or 4 readings a night. And then
That's great. That's great practice, and that's
I charged,
awesome.
I charged a little bit of money for them, but it was how I sort of got comfortable with the idea of charging for what I was doing.
Getting your feet wet. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So again, if somebody's just starting out and feels like they need experience before they can like charge a full on regular tarot rate, um, there's always like events that you can volunteer for free, and you'll get. I did an anarchist fair at St. Mark's Church once. I'll never forget it. It was such a beautiful night, and I worked so hard, and I did the whole thing for free just because I wanted the experience.
Hmm. So doing events, charity events, all fundraisers, as well
Yeah.
as hanging your own shingle. That's great. Awesome.
Yeah. And it was great. And then once I felt really comfortable, it was like the sky was the limit in New York. There's an event in dozens of events every night. So I put myself out like as a New York reader, and it's if you live near a major city, that's super profitable, you know.
Absolutely. Now you've been at the Reader Studio. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah, the
That's
reader.
that's like the major for everybody who doesn't know what the Reader Studio. That's like the World Series for tarot readers and psychics, right?
It's amazing. The Reader's Studio is like you have never seen or experienced anything like it until you go through 4 days of the Reader Studio with like all of the incredible tarot readers from like around the world. Um, just being there, um, amazing things start to happen, and then they always have wonderful speakers and classes. It's fabulous.
And you
It's so
get to
fun.
network with and meet other readers, and I guess, as it were, that's where you get to learn stuff and exchange tips and
It's great. And now, I have friends that I've known for years, and I'll see them like I was, I'll see them overseas, and I'll run into people that I know from the Reader Studio. It's so much more intimate having face-to-face interaction,
mhm.
and there's so much hands-on activity at the Reader Studio with the cards. So they'll be like you'll have moments that you'll never forget with, you might be sitting across from Rachel Pollack or Bob Place, or Mary Greer might be giving you your foundation reading, and it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And of course, the whole world walks past your table. That's the amazing thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's super cool.
Now, you've got a lot of irons in the fire right now, haven't you? You've just come back from Italy, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Tell
I
us
was
about Italy and Lo Scarabo. What is this? Is this a deck that you've been working on, or what?
so I began my relationship with Lo Scarabeo through the tarot series, the Tarot Experience
Right.
Compendium, those books. And one day I was talking to Ricardo, my editor, and he was saying, "Oh, Sasha, you don't really. It's hard to really you. It's a different thing to write about a deck, but when you make a deck and the archetype it springs from inside of you, there's nothing like it. It's totally different." And so he put a bug in my head. I had never thought that I was going to make a tarot deck. But then yeah, so he got my wheels going, and so I proposed a haunted house tarot based on 19 but the art, well, right, well, because the haunted house and the tarot, it's like the metaphor. It's a metaphor for all of us, right? Like,
Right.
and every haunted house movie, and the art it's based on is the 60s and 70s Gothic novellas with like the heroine running away from the castle, like in a gorgeous dress. And in all of those like movies and books, she enters the haunted house kind of terrified, and then 9 times out of 10 at the end of the novel or the end of the movie, she kind of owns the house. Right? So it's this wonderful metaphor, actually, like a supernatural metaphor, for facing your shadows. So I thought, oh, would make a perfect deck. And so, yeah, they approved it, and they hooked me up with a wonderful artist, a Disney and Marvel comic artist named Mirko Pierfederici.
Okay.
I know it's a hard one to say. Yeah, and it's coming out in September.
That is awesome. Well, that's let me ask you: is your husband an artist?
My husband's a photographer.
Photographer, okay. Because I remember, because I was going to say, well, maybe, get your husband in there, get him working for you, designing cards. There's an idea.
Yeah, no, he's not like a hands-on, like, yeah, no, he's definitely a visual artist in, food is his specialty. He's a food
Oh, really? Oh, okay, good. Well, that sounds exciting that this deck is coming out. Well, I mean, that's in terms of for people who know, but in terms of the history of tarot cards, the cards were a form of initiation for like the Golden Dawn, etc. When you became a magician, right? You were asked to design your own cards, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's an interesting thing. What makes tarot so fantastic, right, is its structure. Its structure is perfect. You use it and you think you're using it at first to like sort of, okay, figure out where you're going and what you're doing. And what it winds up doing is teaching you about the nature of like the material world. And it becomes a doorway into the invisible world and the spiritual world. It's all of this stuff. So like when the Golden Dawn was using tarot, the structure of it kind of the structure of tarot was laid on top of all of the work that they were doing. And the Golden Dawn was able to exist because they were using Masonic structure, right? So it's this funny thing where like you keep going back to this basic but really strong structure, and then there's all this stuff you can do with it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something. Have you ever, I mean, since we're talking about spirits and haunted, have you had any, psychic, paranormal, ghost spirit type experiences? Have you ever had any visions or see? Go on, come on, tell scary stories.
Yeah, let's tell stories. It's so funny. I swear to God, this didn't happen, and it might not be as exciting as like the lady in white like appearing and putting her hand on my shoulder, but this morning I'm very keen and fascinated with the in-between place between being awake and being asleep.
Okay.
Have you ever, I don't know if anybody watching has ever had those experiences where you're in another world, and there's ways that you can test to make sure like it's kind of like lucid dreaming in any way. This morning, I was in that place and I heard someone call my name very clearly. It was a female voice. And I woke right up and I was like, ooh, okay. And I waited for anything else, and there was nothing else. And I took that as a sign to just pay attention. And so I think I did a really good job of paying more attention than maybe I normally would have. So I have interesting nighttime experiences. When reading for people or just with my friends, like anybody else, when I get information that I would call psychic, to me, it feels like information that just sort of almost pops like a bubble in my head, and I just am full of knowing, or I just know something. And that's something that happens from time to time, but I never call myself a psychic because that's not something I can count on. That comes from the outside in. But it's always fantastic and feels amazing when it happens. I always know when I'm going to get a call or a text. That's like a psychic thing that's not so helpful, right? But it's cool when it happens.
Have you ever been asked to give readings from departed relatives, etc., or messages?
I have, and that's something that I tread very carefully on, because I don't want to misrepresent myself and say I'm not a medium who has an active conversation with the other side. There are times when I've certainly used the cards to communicate. And you can't count on it. Like, you know when it's working and you know when it's not. Or at least that's how it works for me. It's different, we're all built so differently, and our psychic and intuitiveness, it's such a sensual, unique thumbprint that each of us carry. So there have been times when I've agreed to say, let's just pull a single card and I'm going to tell you what comes to mind. And let's just say that is a message from that person. But it's something that I do tread carefully with that.
Oh, I hear you. No, it's a responsibility. I mean, there is I think you raised a point that a lot of readers should listen to, is we have an ethical responsibility of being, true or accurate or honest, right? And also ethical,
Ethical and even skeptical. I'm a very I tend on the side of being very skeptical, because I understand, and I think it's a fascinating thing, that the process of reading cards. So many people, I think, approach a reading, a client or a querent approaches the reading thinking they want to know about their future, but no one can confirm the future. So they wind up getting blown away when the reader sees something that's either going on right now, or they can confirm something that's happened in the past. And it's one of the things I believe is that one of the things that we provide for our clients is the kind of security and knowledge that this invisible world exists, right? So it's not even, it is with some clients. Am I gonna make money? Am I gonna fall in love? They'll want to know things like that. But I think for a lot of people, and the people who will tell you about the really deep, provocative, and life-changing psychic readings that they've had, have been readings that really confirmed that there's so much more to our experience of the world than what meets the eye in the material level.
Brilliant.
I think it's profound, and I think it's beautiful. And I think my one other last thing that I'll say, which is that what readers all do is we give people an opportunity to feel as if they're seen, as if they're really understood. And that's, I think most of us walk around trying to express ourselves and not, it does in our life, and we don't feel like we're heard, or we don't feel like we're seen. And so when someone sits down and puts their trust in us and they just open up, right? And you see people doing that. It's an incredibly cathartic thing to allow someone to have that experience in front of you and to see them and kind of hold them in that space.
Well, that's very, very deep. What happened in the UK? You also, you were on a little bit of a world tour this year.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It was such a fun, October was like as if October couldn't get any better, right? But I had this wonderful trip. So I was the keynote speaker at Kim Arnold's UK Tarot Conference, which, oh my God, it was so amazing. Stephen Bright was there, and Carrie Paris was there, and I made so many wonderful new friends, and surprisingly saw people that I hadn't expected to see from the States, or friends from England who I had met and connected with at the Reader's Studio. So it was this like fabulous weekend of tarot and learning and classes, and bookstores. My friend Susan Wands was just launching a new fiction book she had written about Pamela Coldman Smith and the Golden Dawn. So I got to go to her book launch, and it was just absolutely, it was phenomenal. And then I was on my way to Lo Scarabaeo's 30th anniversary in Italy.
Okay.
And I had 4 days to kill, so I spent some time in Paris. It was
Hold on, somebody's. What's going on here? Somebody's calling.
Oh, cool. What are they calling?
I don't know.
We hear you. The
Okay.
answer is yes.
Okay, there was somebody. I don't know what that was. But anyway, sorry about that, everybody. Sorry, Sasha. I have no idea where that came from.
No worries.
Okay. So, you were talking about London, and then you went to Paris. Now, was Paris just a romantic trip, or did you meet some tarot people and psychics there as well?
No, no, the Paris, I was completely on my own in Paris, which was so exciting. I had never been there before. I didn't know what to expect. And of course, the city bowled me over. So I ate a lot of food and went to a lot of museums, and I just walked and walked and walked. And it was like being on the set of Les Mis. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm a New Yorker, right? I'm talking to you right now from New York City. And the city changes from block to block. Like, you'll be in one neighborhood, then you're in another. And in Paris, it's just beauty, unending beauty that keeps going and going and going. So it was fantastic. And then by the time I got to Italy, it was time to see a lot of tarot friends again. So it was wonderful to be at the offices of Lo Scarabeo. Barbara Moore, my acquisitions editor from Llewellyn, she was there. And so Lo Scarabeo had this huge party for their 30th anniversary. And there's a massive exhibition because their offices just coincidentally happened to be next door to this big museum. So they put on a show. You couldn't believe walking through it. It was 2 floors. They had sculptures from Niki LaSalle's garden in Italy on display. They've got the David Bowie tarot in the works. So the artist of the David Bowie tarot was there. And he had actually worked with Bowie, who was very keen on making a tarot deck for years. So I got to meet him and see all of that. And like every tarot artist and author that works with Lo Scarabeo pretty much was over there. So it was like pretty phenomenal.
Well, they make some beautiful decks, that's for sure. I love some of their decks. It's funny, I collect decks. Do you collect decks? Are you a collector, or do you just have one deck, or do you have some of your favorites?
I have some of my favorites. What's so funny is I've never been a deck collector at all. And in fact, Wald Amberstone at the Tarot School, he was always very keen on talking about becoming good enough that you wouldn't actually need the physical cards. Right? He'll be like, one day it will kind of like be in your head and you won't need a card. And he's right, he's right. Because the symbolic language of tarot can come right off the cards and into your everyday life. Like, you can read the room that you're sitting in as if it's a card. You can read anything as if it's a card. But anyway, so because of my relationships with publishers and my friends, I have so many beautiful decks and so many, and I was always a book collector. I never a deck collector, but I inadvertently have like dozens and dozens of them both here. Yes.
What's your working deck? Is it still a Rider deck, or?
Yeah, it's the Rider Waite for sure. And I love the Halloween tarot. That I really, when I was starting out, the Halloween tarot really helped me because I was drawn to the images. I just thought they were so adorable and compelling that it brought me back. These days, though, I've been using the shadows. I go by mood, right? So if I'm feeling dark and edgy, I'll grab a vampire deck if I have a question or something I want to explore. If I'm feeling kind of more like, I'll grab the Shadowscape Tarot. If I'm like in the woods and like looking at, there's a crow outside my window, I'll pull like a nature-based deck. So now it goes according to my mood, but if I'm reading for people, 9 times out of 10, it's the Rider Waite.
Well, and you said you're going to be doing some work on Pamela Coleman Smith. Or is this in a future book or something, or you're including her life story?
Yes.
Go on, tell us about Pamela. I think she's one of the great unsung heroes, of course.
Oh, isn't she though? Oh my God! And Pamela Coleman Smith is going to be having herself quite a year. Let me just say that. Let me just say that. And I think that she's finally going to be getting some of the due that's owed to her. But regarding my project, I have a book coming out in September with Llewellyn called Llewellyn's Complete Book of the Rider Waite Smith Tarot Deck. And inside, it was such an incredible opportunity to like research her, to go and see her original art, to go look through her letters. I went out to Stuart Kaplan at US Games, who was so generous, letting me see all of he has an incredible Pamela collection, as most people know. I went to the New York City Public Library and the Byrne collection, and they just have they have Pamela. They have her green sheath. So much of her artwork, so much Bram Stoker's like original letters. So it was just like immersing myself sensorially in the handiwork. And like Pamela Coleman Smith, you can't, until you're looking at some, and she hand colored her artwork, right? And she did so much work in the course of her life. And the tarot deck was just one little commission. I mean, she was the member of the Golden Dawn, so she worked with tarot as far as the Golden Dawn members did.
Right.
But as far as an art object, it was one commission, right? Among thousands, and she just never stopped. And even after she left London, right, she was a part of that whole kind of lost generation, the artists that were so busy in London and in Paris at the turn of the century. Even when she left for a more quiet lifestyle in the country, she was still writing articles. She was putting on community theater. Theater was such a big part of her life. And art, you know, for her, it didn't matter if she was telling Jamaican folk tales, or if she was painting a picture, or if, you know, she was reciting Yeats's poetry somewhere. It was all about the transcendental quality of art being a portal, art being a gateway, and ultimately for her, storytelling. You know, it was storytelling. So she was so much fun to get into. And then equally fun, shocking, some people might say shockingly, is because this book is the guide to the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. I really wanted to find out exactly, you know, I'd always found the pictorial key quite dense. You know, he wrote, Arthur Waite wrote in this very convoluted, wordy way. So I deconstructed the whole book to get underneath what he was really trying to say. And it's so beautiful. What, you know, he was a Christian mystic, and he talks about his relationship to the divine via the tree of life and the tarot, and it's exquisite. So I never would have deconstructed the pictorial key if I hadn't written this book, and I'm just so happy that I was given the opportunity to do so, because I kind of feel like it well,
I completely agree with you, Sasha, because I think a lot of people, especially the Crowley crowd and the more Golden Dawn deck types, look at the old Rider-Waite as kind of a lightweight deck, but in fact it's just as serious, it's just as dense. The imagery is just as meaningful as any of, you know, the Crowley or, you know, any of the other decks that are supposedly more, you know.
But like, think about the fact, and anybody watching and tuning in right now knows this, like after 10, 20 years, you've got the Rider-Waite deck in front of you, and you still like hold your breath the second before you flip a card. You know, you're still like surprised and on the edge of your seat.
This is still my street deck. I have, like you, I've got 100 decks that I take out once, do one reading, and I put it back in the box, and that's it, right? I mean, I've got 100 decks just like that. I bought this deck, I think it was $8. That tells you how long ago it was. It's still,
the retail was $8.
It was $8, right? Yeah, so that's a while. But I mean, it's just as dense, you know. It's just as meaningful, because a lot of people like, oh, it's Disney, it's cartoons, it's not serious, you know. It's a very serious deck. I mean,
and at the end of the day, like, who cares? Like, if it works for you, who cares if you are using like a kid tarot deck? Like, whatever. Like, are you getting something out of it? That's really all that matters.
Now, are you having a column on the Times, or what was this thing about? Were you quoted in the Times? I got a little buzz there. I was just curious. What's the story? Go on.
The story. I was contacted by a writer for the New York Times a couple months ago.
Okay.
Apparently, Christian Dior designed the House of Dior. I don't know if it was Christian Dior. The House of Dior put some tarot images into their new collection. Okay. And that's not surprising, right? This happens, like, tarot is kind of co-opted by the fashion world every couple of years, like Dolce & Gabbana.
A Hermes scarf will have some tarot cards.
Yeah, they'll make a line of fragrances and base it on the tarot. So, but the interesting thing is that, you know, everybody keeps talking right now about how tarot is trending and witchcraft is trending, and it's all very trendy. So she was writing an article that was talking about Dior and the fact that like tarot is having, I don't know, I can't say it's having a resurgence. It's always played such a big part of my life. Like
I think it's always been here. It's not like it's come and go. It's always been here. I agree with you, but go on.
Yeah. So she was just looking to talk about it. So she wound up quoting me in an article that she wrote for the in the style section. It came out, I don't know, a month or two ago. Yeah, and the article was tarot is trending and Dior knows it.
So it's not like there's a column or anything. I was going to say, the Times has got a tarot column. That would be
tarot
great.
column, no, they're not that progressive quite yet, but who knows? You don't know. It's a funny, that's an interesting thing. And for any tarot writer who's out there listening, if you're interested in writing about the cards, or if you're interested, all these magazines, so many magazines and publications are looking for new ways to incorporate like cool, fresh, like modern content. I wrote briefly for Marie Claire. I wrote a tarot column, and I think a lot of magazines and newspapers want to try and figure out a way to make tarot as like cool as astrology, and do things they'll bring weekly readers. So if anybody out there can figure out a way to do that and to pitch it to a magazine or a publication or an online forum, do it.
That's a great idea. You're right.
They're hungry for it. They're hungry for it.
Well, there's always a demand for us. We'll always be here. You'll always be here, right?
Always.
Now, I remember when you came to our little group in Saugerties, we had just for people out there, we have a little psychic meetup, and Saugerties is a little town in the Hudson. And Sasha was so gracious, she came and she actually rocked. I mean, she came up with probably the most important question. This is talking shop, okay? But it's also for anybody who wants to get a good reading, but also for any reader who wants to make sure they give good readings. It's asking the right questions, and it was so. I mean, if there's one pet peeve, I'm sure every other reader has the same thing, is to try and steer the client, the querent or the client, whatever you want to call them,
right?
To asking a real question rather than that sort of vague, kind of mushy, tell me my life,
Yeah. Well, and what's so interesting is, and depending on the person who's sitting across from you, sometimes formulating the question solves the problem before a card is even flipped, right? Because maybe the person sitting across from you hasn't articulated exactly why they're uncomfortable, or they haven't been able to pinpoint what's going on in their life. So when you work with someone on forming an empowering question, and that's my thing, the idea of forming a question where you take personal responsibility for your life.
That's brilliant. And good.
It's so key. In the beginning, I think tarot was about like fate, fortune, and destiny, when people had less kind of mobility in their life, and people didn't know then what we know now. And one of my favorite things, or favorite ways to look at tarot and how we can use it today, is through hindsight, insight, and foresight, right? Because it's really about having a conversation with ourselves and being insightful and acknowledging that we play a tremendous role in our future. So that by asking the right questions where we're empowered, we can then move towards the things that we desire for ourselves.
Awesome. Well, you have been incredibly generous with your time, and you provided us with incredible food for thought. And I'd just like to ask if there's anybody who has any questions they'd like to ask Sasha. You can either raise your hand, if you know how to do this. There's apparently a way for you guys out there to raise your little blue hand to ask Sasha a question, or make yourself visible and raise your hand or wave. I've muted everybody because there was quite a bit of background noise, so you'll have to unmute yourselves Does anybody have a question for Sasha they'd like to ask, either about reading or also if Sasha has the time, if she's willing? Oh, here we go. Got somebody. Yes, go ahead.
Hi.
This is Roy from, where are you from, Roy?
Australia.
There you go.
Hey, hello down under.
Sasha, something you were saying about earlier on in here. Now, when I first started myself, start reading the market. Yes, unfortunately met a reader with an egotist. Her word of advice was to throw away the book.
That's good advice. That's great advice.
That was the first thing she said. She said, okay, if cars don't speak to you, then you're not meant to use them. Now, I didn't take that on, and I don't pass it on to other people because I don't believe in sort of making people or scaring people off the tarot. Because
Right,
they are quite a useful tool. But
I think, and I want to just say back to you what I heard. So I heard, to make sure that I heard you the right way, I think you had said that when you were first starting to read the cards, someone had suggested to you, throw away the book, because if the cards aren't speaking.
Throw what comes with it. Throw away the instruction booklet.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very good advice. I mean, the quickest way to shut down your new tarot deck, like the first thing, and you guys know this, right? When you're sitting down with someone who doesn't know the cards, and they'll flip one over and say, "Oh, I don't know what this means," right? And I'm always like, no, like, stop that. You've had your entire life experience. You're bringing that to the cards. You can find something there, right? So I think throwing away the books is a fantastic way to begin, and just focusing on one single element that leaps out to you. I think that's really sage advice, because the books will always be there, right? So once you're comfortable, you can go back and look at all of the scholarly stuff and all of the meanings, but it's your relationship with the deck that counts more than anything. So I'd say that's really good advice.
Awesome. I mean, that's kind of like life, isn't it? You know, you start by reading all the books, and then eventually you start throwing them away, right?
Right. And I mean, and one of the things that I would always do if I was reading cards at a party and a child would approach, like somebody 12 years old and younger, I had a bad experience once. I think they pulled I feel like I scared a child once. Okay. And so I thought from that moment forth, whenever a child approaches the table, I'll have them read the card for me. And so not only did it get rid of anything like scary happening for the child and marking them, but what I would hear, their interpretations of the cards, because we're all natural storytelling beings.
And kids love storytelling, absolutely.
And they're fearless, right? So they just, and it's amazing. And my daughter who's 14, she knows the cards, but she's not like obsessively about getting things right. And she gives me the most deep, beautiful readings because she trusts herself. So yeah, throw away the books.
So you've got your daughter's partially following in your footsteps. That's amazing.
Well, she couldn't avoid it. It's so funny because, and her entree into it was because she's an artist, and so she loves to draw. So she'll be like, she'll pick a theme and then she'll make decks. Like she's made me a couple decks and they're just beautiful.
Oh, really? Well, that's so you do have a deck designer in the house. That's great.
Ooh, I do.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, we'll probably see a deck by her coming out soon in Los Scarabo or Llewellyn.
Maybe. Not a bad idea. The college fund.
There you go. There's a college. That
looked great on a college resume, actually. You can tell my wheels are. She's in high school now, so I'm like.
That's great. That's funny. Well, Roy, it's good to see your face. Roy's one of our little members. He's a regular viewer of our various programs, and what part of Australia are you from? What's the name of the state or the town that you're in?
Tasmania. I'm in Launceston in Tasmania in Australia.
Tasmania. Wow. Awesome.
Cool.
That's amazing. It's amazing with this technology. We're in each other's living room. Isn't that amazing, Roy?
Amazing. And I'm so jealous because you're experiencing a nice warm summer right now, I would imagine. And it's like 2 degrees here.
Awesome.
Oh, it's been dreadfully hot down here for Tasmania. Supposedly in temperate zone, getting temperatures in the mid 30s. So
That's centigrade, right?
I'm definitely glad I don't live on the mainland because I'd be getting temperatures in the mid 40s and I'd be cooking.
I'll tell you. Absolutely. Okay, anybody else want to pop up or raise your little blue hand or make yourself visible or unmute yourself and ask Sasha a question, either, talking shop or maybe somebody might want a reading? Are you willing to give a little 1-card or 2-card reading, Sasha? Or
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Anybody? Come on, going once. Come. Yeah, you can either unmute. There's a little button that says unmute, or you can raise the little blue hand if you know how to do that. Who would like to check in?
Although I'd love to hear beginner advice. I think that's I love that, like, throw out the books.
Right.
Or like your granny's advice about turning a card over and not looking at it until the end of the day. I'm actually so excited to try that.
Right. Meredith, you were one of the first people on. Would you like to say hello? And do you have a question or any comments or anything you'd like to ask Sasha? Or Ruby? Anybody? This is, come on, guys.
Is our Brady Bunch being silent?
Here we go. We got chat. We've got a chat. See what happens sometimes to people, they don't, okay, I have a question. Meredith, do you know how to get your sound working? Or do you have to type it? I'll unmute you. Let's see if I can unmute Meredith. I unmuted you. Can you speak now? Try speaking now, Meredith. You may need to configure your device, which means taking the little mouse down to the status line and doing something with the microphone gizmo.
She says she has a question.
Okay.
She said it on the chat.
Okay. Go on. Type away if you can't speak. That's fine.
What was the most bizarre
question you were asked in a reading? Okay.
Oh. Well, it wasn't the one that leaps to mind. It's not as bizarre as I was kind of like shocked and taken aback.
Okay.
Even though I shouldn't have been. I was reading cards at actually, I think, I can't say his name, but I think he was actually Australian, the most like successful like venture capitalist from Australia. Or I shouldn't even. I should anyway.
Whose name shall be completely anonymous?
Shall be withheld. But I was at this sick apartment. It was so gorgeous. This huge party, but then it was like tarot readers who go out and read for parties. They'll find out it's a really interesting, or they know, or if you do it someday, you will find out that it's interesting going to different parties. They take on personalities of their own, right? The people.
There's an energy, a group energy, or dynamic, yeah.
Yeah. So the people who wind up sitting down with you, and it's always different. A work event tends to be something different. If you're doing like a party, that tends to be you get all kinds, all sorts. But at private parties, right, you get everybody's kind of connected by this thread that makes them all friends. So they were these really outrageously wealthy, super creative, super fun people, and this like hottie in a Brooks Brothers suit sits down, and you can see he's like, and that's the other thing, right? At parties, you're dealing with people who've been drinking, which stinks, but you learn how to deal with it because it's part of the job. But he sits down, and he was almost like shiny and he said to me, "Can I keep cheating on my wife successfully?" And he was, I don't remember the exact question, but he was asking if he could keep getting away with what he was doing, which was obviously, he was so delighted by himself that he had even asked the question, right? Like the whole thing, I was just sort of so taken aback. And it brought up this great ethical thing, right?
Okay.
As readers,
absolutely,
are we to place judgment on people, right? I I sat down and read once for someone who was heading off to jail. He had been involved in the Seattle environmental like riots like 10 years ago or something. Anyway, he was heading off to jail, and I could clearly see what was going. So you get stuck, or you're like, okay, I have to answer, or you don't have to, but do you answer the question, or do you sit there and kind of like address it through what you think they should be doing? Like, obviously, I thought that fellow who asked if he could keep cheating on his wife, I thought that was a horrible question to ask, but I told him that, but then I answered the question based on the card that I drew. So it's not, I don't think that it's our place to necessarily pass judgment when somebody's sitting across and asking the question, even though they can like totally throw you. And that's like what's so fun too, is like you get so, like, I'm a Scorpio. I think so many tarot readers are just intimacy junkies anyway. And you get so deep so fast with people who tell you like such delicious things that, you know, it's kind of like, you know, everybody's a novel, and you get to look through and go straight to like the most kind of compelling parts of themselves when you're reading for them, or parts of themselves.
Often the cards are, you don't have to be the morality police, but often the cards do the job perfectly well anyway. Just let the,
yes. It's true. It's so true.
I have actually had, it was a woman who was, had a really complicated love story. I mean, it was like a French farce. I mean, I couldn't keep up with the players in her life, but the card said, better slow down, honey. There's going to be a train wreck coming your way very soon.
Right.
Because you're not going to be able to keep all those, the juggler. You couldn't keep, she's not going to keep juggling forever,
It's not gonna happen. So I just saw Meredith had another question.
That's Brenda, but go ahead.
Oh, it was Brenda. I'm sorry. She wanted to know if I had ever had somebody get really upset in a reading. Yeah, I have. I think because the nature of tarot reading, especially if somebody's coming to you for an hour-long reading, and it can get very deep and emotional. But when you see things when people aren't expecting it, and I think that tends to happen around issues of pregnancy and miscarriage that sometimes comes up, and then and people can get very upset. Or how do you handle that situation? How do I handle that situation? So I've had moments where I didn't even realize what I was saying before I said it, and then the person is sitting there and reacting, and that's really your opportunity as a reader to guide them through that experience. If somebody is breaking down and crying in front of you, what you have at your disposal are options to give them via the cards. So, people who break down with you, breaking down, crying is like laughter. It's an opening, right?
It's a release, yeah.
It's a release. And so it can be scary and off-putting to have someone break down in front of you, but then you have an opportunity to use that and hopefully guide them through, so that ultimately something very profound can come out of the reading. And it's a tricky thing, and you do have to be, the power of suggestion is so strong. You have to be careful with your words, and the intuition of how to interact with people and how to speak kindly and say the right. That's always been my opening mantra going to a job, is may the words coming out of my mouth be the words that these people need to hear.
Absolutely. Hey, Brenda, I'm going to see if if we can hear you, okay? I'm just going to click. I muted everybody because there was some background noise. Can we hear you? Can we hear you, Brenda? Just say hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, I'm waving at the screen. Hi.
Hi.
Well, the camera's not on for some reason, but that's okay. Your camera isn't on, but that's okay. But if you want to, that's fine. Let's see if anybody else wants to say. Okay. Anybody else want to say hello, want to check in, or perhaps even ask a shop? Oh, we go. There's Brenda.
There she is. Hi.
Hey, Brenda. There you go. That's cool. Anybody I want to ask Sasha a question, either if you want to talk shop talk, tarot talk, that's fine. Or if you want a reading, that's excellent also, because like I said, Sasha's generously offered to give anybody a little brief reading or something, or we can talk shop.
You can do me.
Okay, there you go, Brenda. She's waving her hand.
I volunteered.
You
You're
volunteer.
volunteering. I love
Awesome.
your tarot room. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is that a salt lamp behind you? I'm jealous.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what, do you have a specific question you'd like to ask?
No, just do a general. See what you get.
Well, we just got only a few minutes, but like a 2-card or 3-card or something, or what could you? What time could you spare?
Actually, I'm gonna I'll do a single card.
Okay, excellent.
Unless it warrants more. We'll see what comes out. And we're right at the beginning of the year. So let's go ahead and call this kind of like your the card of 2018 for you. And this card is calling out to me. It's the strength card. So when I look at the strength card, the first thing that's popping out to me right now as we're sitting and talking is the beautiful golden yellow of the background. And yellow to me is the color of creativity and expansion and beauty. So it almost for me right now is overwhelming, the idea that sometimes the strength card implies that, oh, like when the strength card shows up, you're like, oh God, it's showing me that I need to be strong, which maybe implies that there's some sort of adversarial thing happening in your life. And that's not what I'm getting from the card at all right now. It's really the yellowness of the card, and maybe because we were just speaking with that fellow in Australia, and that idea of like rich summer deliciousness and manifestation of the sun. So what I would say to you is that I think that 2018, there's so much juicy, good, creative things that you have going on. And so if, right, the thing with tarot is that you can only really, or the thing with any of us is we can only really focus on one kind of thing at a time. Like your keyword for the year, the focal point of your year should be all of your creative projects, your creativity. Because I think that the strength card, because you've taken care of a lot of things that needed to be taken care of last year, like you were putting your house in order, so that you could kind of just be expansive and kind of like glorious in what's going on for you this year. So that's creativity.
So thank you. That actually resonates when you say, Tony.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to be telling tales out of school, but Brenda's doing a lot of very creative stuff. So I actually know Brenda. She's very busy right now creating some really cool things, actually.
Oh,
yeah, that resonates. So I thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks.
Awesome. Nice. Great say. Look, like I said, you got a great little background there. It's all very mystical and psychic.
Well,
there,
actually, this is my do-it-all room. I do my crafts here. I do my everything I'm working on now here. So this is my creative space.
That's awesome.
Gorgeous. It's your room of one's own. You're so lucky.
Exactly.
Everyone should have that. It's a gift.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, good to see you, Brenda. Thanks for physically showing up. We've got to figure out how to do the little blue hand. Some people know how to do it. Apparently, you can do it on an iPhone and an Android, but on a computer, it's a little tricky.
Oh,
but that's so anybody's got a little blue hand or type or just unmute and say hello. There we go. Anybody? Or just type in something in the chat box. There's a little chat window. Anybody want to say hello? Okay. Well, I guess that's, anybody? Once, twice, 3 times. Oh, well. How about, can you do a card for me, please?
Sure.
Sasha, would you please? I'm just delighted that you're here, and I want to take advantage of it. So
nice. Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Oh, good. Not really. Just a card. Just see what the cards have to say. I mean, again, I totally resonate with this. The old Rider-Waite deck, so I love it, you know. So
So
whatever
sweet.
comes up, I mean, it's whatever the message is.
So this is something I'll do. I didn't do it with Brenda, but I'll do it with you. Can you give me, and when you're reading for someone remotely, right? Can you give me a number between 1 and 10?
Okay, for some reason the number 7 came in right
Okay.
out of my third eye there. 7.
And let's say that this is the card, the same for you. You're the card of 2018. 3, 4, 5,
6.
6. Lucky 7. Oh, I almost want to tell you what I see before I give you the card reveal. How about that?
That sounds cool. Cool. Go ahead.
Oh my God. So the card that comes up for you and what's talking about when we're looking at your 2018. When I was talking to Brenda, I was very much kind of resonating to the background of that card, which was yellow. For you, there's this deep intuitive blue, right?
Okay.
So for you, 2018, you're gonna, and as soon as I say this, you'll know exactly what it is. 2018 for you is a year where you move deeper into spiritual realms, that deeper than you ever thought possible. Um, you've got
Right, High Priestess, of course. Yeah, yeah.
of course, right?
Face
So,
getting into your intuition, into your developing your psychic ability, your Shakti, etc. Yeah. Cool.
yeah, and becoming more involved into who it is that you are, right? Like I always look at the high priestess is like the seed of who each of us is, right? She's got our whole lives written in her book, in her scroll. Um, and so it's just up to us to like remember who it is that we are. So for you, I feel like there's this great unfolding, and of course like wisdom, that makes this a particularly evocative year for you. Oh, I love the high priestess.
It's a great card, and you know, again, I can still be a guy and allow my feminine side to develop. You know.
Well, absolutely. And that's the whole, like, we know with the Golden Dawn and the occultists and Hermeticism, right? And the whole point, the reason the high priestess sits between two pillars is
Right.
we've got the masculine and the feminine, and she's the integration in the center, right? And that's the occultist goal, to integrate all of the qualities that are inherent to us. So yeah, I know you can get down with the high priestess for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's brilliant. And I loved having you on tonight. It's the top of the hour, and again, Sasha's been so generous with her time, telling us her life story, her some of her little secrets. And again, let's just one last call for a little brief reading from Sasha before we say goodnight. Going once, going twice. Well, Sasha, I want to thank you for being on tonight. It was just awesome having you. It's always a pleasure to see you, you know. I hope you'll come back soon, either with your, hold it, we got a last, what do we got here? Oh, loved it. Okay,
Oh,
well, thank you,
yeah.
Meredith. I'm glad yeah, I'm sure we loved having you too, Meredith. Again, it'll be great to see your new deck and also your new book when that comes out, right?
Yeah. I just put the cover art on my Facebook page, so anybody can scroll onto my regular Facebook profile, and they'll see what the book's gonna look like.
Well, again, just if anybody wants to contact Sasha for a reading or discussion, I did put her information on the event page. If you want to, Sasha, if you want to briefly just whatever your website name is, what's the name of the site that you contact with the universe?
SashaGraham.com.
There you go. Couldn't be easier.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm super Googleable, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all those yummy.
So there you go, guys. And Sasha, like I said, thank you so much for being on tonight, and hope you'll come back soon. Okay, when I guess when we got some more goodies, and I promise more people who will be asking you for readings and discussion there.
Oh,
Guys, good
great.
night. I love you all. Have a blessed evening. And Sasha, again, thank you. Namaste. Goodbye.
Namaste. Night.